Hello, great to be here.
Yes, Tom, it's great to not see you, but think of you. Oh, there we go. Oh, and here comes Stephen. Yeah, why wouldn't you want why wouldn't you want to show that mug, Tom? It's a wonderfully peaceful, blissful face.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just here
Yeah.
with my family, so you'd hear the background.
No, that's all right. You don't have to put your camera on if you don't want to. I just wanted to see you for a second, say hi. That was all. Stephen could just show me the top of his
Hey,
head. That's all right.
oh, well, I'll change the angle.
Oh, how wonderful. Oh my gosh, now I want to be there. All we need is a big bowl of buttered popcorn. Wonderful. Hey, Stephen.
Hey,
Good to how you doing? Well, you don't have to tell me. We can talk later at some point. Good to see you. All right. So actually, all of that, I'll have to edit all that out. So we're on page 54 of book one of the Imitation of Christ on the book one called Admonitions for a Spiritual Life, and the section is called Meditation on Death. And we're on verse 4, I think it is. And, thinking on death, just kind of to talk freely for a minute about it, it's really a very beneficial thing for the quality of life. Certainly for spiritual life, but also just for the quality of life. It keeps you from wasting it. And it always refocuses you on what's important. I was talking this morning, Sri Nisargadatta was telling us to ruthlessly be dispassionate this morning. And I was talking about, I had to clean up a person's estate who had died. And, we filled a large dumpster with all of her stuff that she had around the house there. And I was just making the note that that's why Sri Nisargadatta was saying to be ruthless in your renunciation. Because why wait until you're dead and have somebody else fill the dumpster? Why don't you just fill the dumpster before you go, and then empty your life of all of that clutter, all of that nonsense, and bring it down to what's important, to the things that really are necessary, and not because all of that sentiment of those things, that's just pure attachment, just holding you back in the world of the past, and that will cause trouble when you're laying there knowing that you're dying, and if you're laying in the midst of a house full of sentiment, that's going to make it so difficult to go. It's going to make it so difficult. And thinking of death will help you do that, will help you make those decisions so you can take your eyes off of this failing body, take your eyes off of this decaying world, and put the mind inward to the place that's still fresh and beautiful, continually fresh. Literally every split second after split second, you are made anew inside. That everything in this changing world is constantly changing and non-repeating, and it's fresh every moment. It's only the mind with its stored memories that makes it stale or makes it old. And the older we get, I remember back when I was 45. Oh, to be young again. When I was 45, when I was 45 and I was laying in bed one morning thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm 45. And I realized for the first time in my life that I probably had more life behind me than I was going to have in front of me. And that was a real change in my thinking. I was like, wow. I started looking around and kind of realizing, wow, well, I guess this is it. I'm not going to be that famous singer. I'm not going to I'm not going to be an astronaut. I never wanted to be an astronaut, but all these when you're young, when you're younger than 45 anyway, your future is the major part of your life, you assume. and you put all of your plans into that future, and you kind of identify yourself with that, of what you're going to do, what you're going to accomplish, what you hope to be. And then you kind of wake up at 45 and you go into your little cubicle farm and you look around and you're like, oh my God, this is it. This is what I've accomplished in my life. And when you think like that, when you make death a conscious understanding, you learn how to live with that, because then you never assume you have a future. That's what Swami Prabhupada was telling me when I asked him about being 80. He says, well, how can it be different? He says, never in your life at any age are you guaranteed another day. Why are you thinking it's different to be 80 than to be 20? And that was such a beautiful answer to me. And that's the point of this section of what we're looking at here. That you live each day to the fullest, as if it was your last day. Just like Nachiketa says in the Katha Upanishad, a long life is short indeed on the last day, right? So the length of life doesn't matter. It's going to be short for you on the last day, but you never know when that last day is. So if you contemplate death, contemplate the temporary nature of the body, it will take your mind off the body, because otherwise it gets really dark really fast. So you have to find this inner light. You have to find this inner joy. And I'm so happy to tell you that after 25 years, I know it's there. I know that which was imagination for me has become experience, not in any real magical, huge accomplishment way. So don't be sitting there thinking, oh, the Swami realized. No, the Swami's definitely not realized. He's definitely realized he's not realized. But the whole point is, you don't have to be realized to live a rich life in the beloved. You just have to practice long enough and sincerely enough, and it really depends on how earnest and sincere you are. If you're more earnest and sincere than I was, it won't take you 25 years. It might take you 25 days. So be really sincere about your practice. Be really earnest when you sit to meditate. Stay really present with it. And when you say the Lord's name each time in your japam, really think about the Lord. Don't let the mind wander off on the dishes and whatnot. Really stay there. And as you say the name, be aware that name and the presence of God are not different. That's the illusion of the mind, that they're two different things. They are not. The name and form cannot be separated. And so as you say the name, say that mantra, know that the beloved is present. And so remember what kind of love is present in you, an unconditioned love, a love that's so deep that you're going to be able to fall into it forever and never be finished falling in love with the beloved. That's the kind of relationship that we're developing through bhakti, with the beloved, with the divine. And so that is preparing for death, really, but ultimately it's improving your life here as well. Like what Vivekananda says, religion is not to take away your joy in life by telling you can't do everything you want to do. Which it seems like that at the very beginning, but that goes away pretty quick. But religion is here to teach you how to enjoy life so that you don't get stuck, you don't get caught in the web. All right, so he says in verse 4 here, he says, how happy and wise are those who try now to become what they would want to be at the hour of death. Right? This is a nice idea here. How happy and wise. So it brings about bliss, right? Because it takes away your future, your sense of future, which is your desires, right? Your longings. It brings those much closer into the heart. And it brings you wisdom. It brings you understanding about what is important. And it helps you become what you want to be at your hour of death, meaning when you write your obituary, which is always a good practice, write your own obituary. What do you want the world to say in the newspaper when you're dead? What do you want? Because they're always your highest ideal. That's kind of how you can put your finger on what your highest ideal is to write down an obituary describing how you would like to be described when you die. And then don't wait till you die for someone else to write it. Now you can start living it. right? That's what he's saying. So if you're thinking about death and understanding that every moment could be your last, then you're going to be happier and wiser, and you're going to start living the way you want to be. You're going to start living to be that highest self. A perfect contempt of the world, an ardent desire to progress in virtue, a love of discipline, a prompt obedience, a denial of the lower self, and a patient bearing of all adversities for the love of Christ will give you great confidence of dying happily. So there he gives it all to you. We can look at it. A perfect contempt for the world. All right, we don't really have to say contempt. A perfect dispassion, a knowledge of what the world is as it is, that without the beloved, there would be no world. So that means the world doesn't have an inherent existence of its own. It exists because God is. And God gives that existence to the world, right? Without God, there would be no existence. There would be no world at all. And so to know this, and so a perfect contempt for the world just means a complete non-attachment to it. You know there is nothing there for you. You know that there's nothing there that you can actually take, that you're watching it, but with the point of knowing that it is a constantly changing description of the one behind it. And that's what gives meaning to life. When you understand that it is an expression of divine love, it is an expression, a teacher of wisdom. You know, when you look at the world, knowing that God is in everything, these last few days in the desert were a direct experience of that for me, where you can sit and look at a piece of wood and you can just sit there quietly and just look at it, just really see it as it is. And then in your mind, in a prayer, knowing that God is everywhere present, that he's in that piece of wood, just say to Ma, teach me something as I look at you in this form of a piece of wood. And you don't have to sit there and then run through possible lessons you could learn in your mind. Just be quiet. Just be quiet. Ask for teaching and be quiet. And Mother always gives, always presents something. Something arises in your mind that will be fascinatingly interesting. To know that all dead trees point to the light. That was my current one, all dead trees point to the light. And how sweet that is. All dead trees are a record of harmony, right? The wood turning and twisting, if the wind had been blowing, if there were rocks in the way, whatever it is, the corpse of that tree tells the story of harmony and reaching for light. And so when you look at a tree now in its living form, it's not just a thing that's just been standing still all of its life. It's a thing that's constantly practicing harmony and always reaching for the light. And what a beautiful lesson right there from a piece of wood, from a tree. So a perfect contempt doesn't mean a hatred. They talk like that a lot because they're really trying to get you to break your attachment to the world. They don't want you to fall in love with the world. But we're tempering it a little bit, saying fall in love with the world as a description of your beloved. So you're looking through the world at God. You're not looking at the world and thinking it's beautiful in and of itself. It's beautiful because it reflects the divine. So a perfect attachment with the world, knowing full well everything expires, nothing lasts, nothing has a value until it meets the divine in you. That it can't exist separate and apart from God. So with all of that, that's the contempt he's talking about, a complete letting go, a complete lack of interest in that sense in the world. An ardent desire to progress in virtue, right? That's having that longing that Ramakrishna talks about. That longing for what? For being authentic, for being what you are. Every time you have that fight with your best friend, don't you just hate those next few hours after you've had a big fight with your best friend and you desperately just want to be back together with your best friend, but you can't get yourself to apologize because your ego insists that they should apologize instead of you, and that's just that horrible feeling. He's talking about that, having that horrible feeling about your delusion, about your ignorance, about not knowing who and what you are. So have that ardent desire to finally be authentic, to finally be the person that you know yourself to be, right? Before the ego and the mind and the body all get in the way, before they conspire to make you small and make you hold on to nonsensical things, things that aren't important. A love of discipline, right? Knowing that discipline is you always feel good about it afterward. The only time discipline feels bad is when you're still in bed, right? That's the only time that discipline feels bad. Those mornings when that alarm goes off and you just jump up and turn off the alarm and get in the shower, you always feel good about yourself. You always do. It feels wonderful to be in charge of the body and mind, because that's the natural way. That's what it should be. It's you getting closer to what you are. You're learning that you're not a body, and yet you're not a mind. And therefore, it's easy to discipline them, because when you think you are them, then you're trying to obey them. They argue with you. They're presenting new ideas and different ideas. Well, you could sleep a little bit longer, maybe just 10 minutes. Well, maybe play one game of solitaire and then you can get up. Roll over and see if you can fall asleep for 15 minutes and then you can get up. That's the discipline we hate. So this ardent love of discipline, a real love for that, is a natural thing. It's not loving what's hard. It's loving nature when things fall into the alignment that they should be, they should be in, that you are in charge of your body, you are in charge of your mind. Mother really showed me many years ago now that your mind is your disciple. Your mind is not you, it's your disciple. And that disciple is a toddler. That toddler is all over the place, running everywhere, always getting into trouble. And how does a mother have to do with a toddler? She has to be constantly aware, right? So he doesn't stick a fork in the outlet. So he doesn't drink the Drano under the sink, right? So mother has to be constantly aware of where that toddler is and what that toddler is up to for the good of the toddler. Exact same relationship you have with the mind. You should always be observant, not attached. You shouldn't think that you're the toddler. You shouldn't be in there following everywhere the mind goes. The mother's not in there running around sticking forks in the in the outlets in the wall before the toddler does. That's not the way to be a mother, right? So if you think you're the toddler and you're just obeying the toddler and running around the house doing nutty things, life's not grand at all for you. Life is actually quite disturbing for you. And so understand the relationship. Your mind is a toddler, and that toddler is your disciple. And it's up to you to raise that toddler well, so that it's disciplined, well-behaved, and an upright citizen of the world. So watch closely. The love of discipline, a prompt obedience. When you know what you need to do, you just do it. You don't fight about it. It's like, my big secret for all of you is all of my examples I talk about, they come from my life, because unfortunately I have lots of examples about what you shouldn't be doing. This prompt obedience, that you don't argue with yourself. And I always like the one getting up in the morning, because that's the one that I know that I struggled with forever. It's like that alarm would go off, at 10 a.m. and I'd be like, oh, I have to get up already. No, I'm kidding. But that alarm goes off in the monastery. It would go off at 5 a.m. And I'd be like, but I can't get up before the sun. That's just not natural. Maybe I can do 5 more minutes. Oh, just 3 more minutes. Oh, I'll get up at 5:15. That'll be the latest. But it only takes me 10 minutes to shower. I can get up at 5:20 and still have the shrine open by 5:30, right? And that's how it goes. And that's miserable. You don't get any extra sleep. You just sit there and kick yourself around the block, right? Right. And so that's the way it is. A love of discipline, a prompt obedience, a denial of that lower self, that self that is attached to body and mind, that self that thinks that the body wants what it wants, that the body's desires are its desires. So a real denial of that self that thinks the mind is itself, right? So that's when we start saying things like, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm angry, I'm hungry. We start attaching attributes of mind to the self, to I. And you've got to do a very disciplined denial of that self, sorting out so that you know who you are. You know that you're not the body, because the body has all kinds of desires and they're always renewed. So you're never going to be free of your slave contract with the body if you believe the body to be you. You're going to be in slavery to it all the time. It's always going to want another piece of chocolate, and after you've had 3 of the same pieces of chocolate, it's going to want a different kind of chocolate, and then it's going to remember that it likes a particular chocolate from a particular store that's 3 times more than what you intended to pay for it. And it's never ending, never ending. I heard that there's a particular coffee bean that's supposed to be the best flavored coffee in the world. And I kid you not, they feed the beans to the elephant. The elephant eats it, goes through the system, but it doesn't digest, but it gets treated with the stomach acids of the elephant. And then the elephant poops it out. That is the most expensive coffee in the world. Just a nice little fact and figure for you there. And so if you want the very best coffee, you have to go and start chasing elephants to pick their turds up so that you can have a good cup of coffee. That is a perfect understanding of what following the body is going to do to your life. That's a perfect understanding of exactly what's going to happen if you think the body's desires are your desires. So a denial of self and a patient bearing of all adversities for the love of Christ, for the love of your highest ideal. A patient bearing of all adversities, that's non-resistance. That's accepting the moment as it is because you see that the moment is God, right? You see that the moment is sourced in love and sourced in wisdom. And so you accept it as it is and you learn. And how do you learn? Well, if every moment is perfect and you're not experiencing it as perfect, chances are you're identifying with the body or identifying with the mind. Because the moment is always perfect for the soul, for the self. It's always perfect. It may not be perfect for a mind, and very rarely is. It may not be perfect for a body, very rarely is. But it's always perfect to the self. And so in the moment, if you're not content, if you're unhappy, if you're not experiencing that bliss, chances are it's because you're following the toddlers. Chances are you're following the toddlers. And so stop and go to home base inside. Breathe for a moment, silence the mind, feel the moment, make the body fully aware of the moment. Bring the mind fully into the moment by silencing it, not letting it carry you anywhere else, and just be present. So a patient bearing of all adversities for the love of Christ will give you great confidence of dying happily, right? What's that really saying? Because none of us really want to sit there and think, oh, I'm going to die happy. Well, what does it mean? It means that your life is going to be fulfilling in every moment. So when that moment contains death, you're going to be happy. You're going to be fulfilled because every moment is lived consciously, awakened. You're not deluded. And so that's how you die happy. You make sure that your mind is always behaving the way you want it to behave. You make yourself aware of the presence of the beloved always. And then on the day when death arbitrarily comes, Jesus says in that parable, it will come like a thief in the night, right? Then you'll be ready. You'll be prepared. It's that story of the virgins with the oil waiting for the bridegroom. Remember that? They're all standing around, and some virgins brought extra oil because they knew the bridegroom might be long coming. And then the half of them didn't bring any oil. And so the bridegroom is late. And so half of the virgins run out of oil and they have to run home to get some. And the bridegroom comes while they're all gone, except for the ones that brought the extra oil with them. And they're the ones that get to go off to the wedding party. And so take the hint. This is what he's saying. Be prepared. Do what you need to do, what you know you need to do it now. Don't wait. And that's how you know that you've lived a good life and you'll die a good death. Strive to do good deeds while you are well. Don't put all of your goodness in the future. Don't wait for till you're retired to do everything, because those days you may not have the energy to do it anymore, right? So do your service, do your practice now. That's why Thakur was looking for young disciples, because he said these old guys that have been living, they've already set in their ways, they've already set their tracks, and they don't have the energy to change. They don't make good disciples. I want young boys with fresh minds, with the vigor for life still in them, so that they can do their practice now, practice that they won't be able to do when they're old, because they'll fall asleep, their back will hurt, their joints will ache. I'm reminding myself. So do your practice now. Do your practice now. Because even if you consider yourself to be old now, you're not as old as you're going to be tomorrow. Right? So spend the energy you have now on keeping your mind on the beloved, on the divine, on the awareness inside. Keep your mind on being disciplined. And, if you're old, that just means you've got some habits that are harder to break. But go after them. Break those habits. Break those habits. Strive to do the good deeds while you are well, for when you are sick, you do not know what you will be able to do. Sickness does not often change us for the better. Also, few are sanctified by making many pilgrimages. Right? Don't be restless. Don't do many pilgrimages. Thakur sings that song. He says, what is there? Oh gosh, now that I've said it, I'm not sure I can remember it. Why go to Vrindavan, if you don't have devotion? And why go to Vrindavan if you do have devotion? Right? He's saying, right here and right now is your temple. Right here and right now is your advantage. The God you will experience in the temple of Vrindavan is the God you will experience in your heart, in your silence. When you've set apart your discipline, when you've done your renunciation and separated your knowledge of self from the body and mind, what do you have left? You've got Vrindavan left in the heart. You've got Eden in the heart. You've got the kingdom of God in the heart. So don't go chasing by having big ideas of, I'm going to go walk the Avenue of Sorrows in Spain. I'm going to go to Jerusalem. I'm going to go to Vrindavan. These are not the necessary things. Go inside. Everything that you're looking for to experience at Bellarmont, at Dakshineshwar, all the things that you have placed there will be important to you only because of what you bring there when you go. Your very own self, right? So don't get restless and place all of your things outside of yourself. Go within. Number 5, do not put your trust in your friends and neighbors, right? Don't put your trust in your friends and your neighbors. Why? Because you are responsible for you. Be responsible. I have a very good friend whose parents were very wealthy. And he knew his whole life that someday he would inherit that money, but I really respect him because he didn't count on that for his retirement. He did it all himself, he paid attention to what he was going to need, paid attention to what he was going to want. And he was very meticulous and very disciplined about doing all of that. And then his parents died, and all of the money that they gave him was just cream on top. It was already cream on top. And so don't put your faith in others. Put your faith in yourself. Go forward. Be strong. Be responsible. Be diligent in your living. Nor put off the care of your soul's welfare until after death. Don't wait till tomorrow. Don't be content that you might realize God at the time of death. Ramakrishna is very adamant about that one. He spits on that. He said, that's exactly the one he was spitting on. I think there was something else, but he I spit on that Vedanta, the one that in my next life, I'll realize God. He hated to hear that. It's like, what kind of attitude is that? Do you know nothing of God? Do you know nothing of what you're going to have when you renounce, when you finally surrender to the beloved? Do you have no idea of how amazing that's going to be, and how your only ever regret you're ever going to have is that you didn't do it sooner? You know, that you didn't work harder and get there faster. That's the only regret you'll ever have. It is the highest experience of being. It is the very point of being alive. And God restarts every day for you to give you another chance. That's why things go in circles for us. That's why there's so many cycles. You know, it's a constant reminder. You're always at the beginning of a new cycle, always. So keep the mind, keep the body, you know, under discipline. Keep yourself full of the presence of God, and go forward. Don't wait. Don't put it off. Don't be content for it to happen in your next life or next year, you know, or once I'm old and ugly, I'll stop going out to the bars. No, you won't. You won't go to the bars, but you'll sit there and be depressed that you can't go to the bars anymore. Right? So change your mind now. That was one of my big realizations. Thank the Lord, he taught me something in my 20s. You know, I had that thought stumbling home up the hill one night. I've shared this before, but that weighed heavy on my mind. I realized, I was like, man, with the life going the way it's going now, I'm going to be the most miserable old man in the world, because I simply won't be able to carry on at this level of entertainment, this level of distraction that has become necessary for my peace of mind. I'm going to be an old man who never learned to find my peace of mind, and I'm going to be tormented by it. I'm going to be tormented. And that was one of my first steps toward what actually turned into my monastic life, my turning away from those things. And that turning away goes on still. It's not a one-time accomplishment, as much as you may wish every day that it was just a one-time thing, like bing, finished. You know, it's constantly trying to attain that one grand renunciation that Ramakrishna talks about, by having a grand sense of discernment, so that you can see the worthlessness as a means of getting anything anyway that the world represents. Right? Sickness does often change us for the better. Also, few are sanctified by making many pilgrimages. Do not put trust in your friends and neighbors, nor put off the care of your soul's welfare until after death, for you will be forgotten sooner than you think. Right? We have to accept that. Most of us are just the minions, right? So our name and fame isn't much. Someday somebody will remember you for the last time. And what difference does it make? That's not why we're living. We're living to love. And the more successful you are in that statement, that you live to love, the longer you'll be remembered. That's why the ones we remember the most are the greats: Buddha, Rama, Krishna, Chaitanya, Ramakrishna, Jesus. You know, these are the people that make the biggest marks on the world. They lived to love, and that was their success. And so your success is not to be a success, not to be remembered. You live to love. You live to love in wisdom. Right? It is better to provide for your salvation now by doing good deeds that will earn eternal merit for you than to rely on the help of others after your death. If you have no concern for yourself now, who will be concerned about you later on? Right? So it's basically just an odd way of saying, be present. Live for this moment. Make it the best offering to your beloved that you can. Every moment is an empty plate to fill with blessings for God, offerings to the divine. So even as you sit here listening to class, you know, be in that presence and offer everything that you're learning to God. Offer the mind to God to be trained by God. Offer the mind and your presence to God so that he can fill it with teaching and understanding that will last beyond the end of the class. You know, Everything in the moment is always offered. And so do that with consciousness, with awareness, and your life will be beautiful, not just to you, but to everybody around you. So live beautifully by learning to love. If you have no concern for yourself now, who will be concerned about you later on? Time is precious now. And that's always true. This now, this moment is all that you have ever had. You've never been in any other time but now. That's all you have. You know, it's probably been a long time since I told this story to you guys. So let me bore you with the story I've already told you. But when I was taking theater class it was actually the spring semester of 1990, my last semester in college, I took an acting class with Robert Taylor. He was a Shakespearean actor from London. And when the first week of class, he paired us up. None of us knew each other, paired us up, made us stand toe to toe with each other and to make eye contact with each other. And there were some rules. 1, you could not break eye contact. 2, you couldn't move your feet from where they were. 3, you couldn't touch the other person. 4, you couldn't say anything. And you had to maintain that. And so we just stood there with a complete stranger, looking deeply into their eyes, not breaking that stare, not moving, not talking, not touching, just maintaining that eye contact. And it went on for quite some time. I don't know how long it was, but some people began to weep. I know I started to tear up. It was an amazing sense of intimacy with the person that you were staring at. You really did you got a very direct knowledge that there is something behind the eyes of everybody, something beautiful in there. And then after we'd been doing that for a while, he had one of those long pointer sticks, and he slammed it against the wall. Bang! And then he slammed it again. Bang! And again. Bang! And after he'd done it like 5 or 6 times, he started talking, and he said, every moment that stick hits the wall, a moment of your life is gone. You will never have it back. You will never be able to reform it or shape it in a different way. You'll never be able to change it. And then he went on to teach us that the tool that the actor has is the moment. And so it was so spiritual. It just shows you that anything done excellently is spiritual. That's why Thakur says about the arts in particular, that if you see excellence in the arts, know that I am there. And so he gave us a lesson about being present in the moment and being able to take the moment and living with consciousness of it, shaping that moment as you want it to be and throwing that moment out to the audience. That's how he talked about it. And he said, so you as an actor have to become firmly aware of your present moment, and you have to develop the ability to shape that moment, to give it a form that is what you want it to be, and to let it go into the audience. That's what acting was for him. After that class, I went straight to a therapist because I saw the moments of my life. You know, that stick kept pounding the wall in my head, and I was like, just watching my life flow through my fingers. And no matter how tightly I closed my hands, that life would not stop running through my fingers. And I began to wonder, what is worth my life? What is worth this most precious thing that is flowing through my fingers that I can't stop? Right? Another one of the puzzle pieces that took me out of the world was that desperate search for something that was worth living for, that was worth spending my moments on. And I tell you, the answer is so obvious, but it took me years to find it. Love is what your life is worth spending on. Love is what is worth the moments that are running through your fingers. So never stop loving. Never waste a moment by forgetting to love, by forgetting or missing an opportunity to care or to encourage or to lift up or to help. And I am my most desperate student to those words, you know. So learn to live for love. It's what our nature is. It's what your nature is. It is what will fulfill you. And this is how we prepare for death. Time is precious now, and now is the day of salvation. the acceptable time. But alas, you spend the time so unprofitably. The time will come when you will wish that you had one more day, even one more hour to put your life in order. But there is no assurance that you will get it. So live with that seriousness, but be free in the knowledge that you know how to spend it. Don't, for me, I didn't know what was worth it. And the panic of that, as I walked to the bus after that class that day, man, what a cloud of depression I had, because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what would be worth my life. Couldn't think of it. Couldn't imagine it. Oh, my dear friend, from how great a peril may you now deliver yourself, and from what terrible fear, if only you would dread to offend God in this life, and always be ready for death. Learn to live now, that at the hour of death you may rather rejoice than tremble. Right? That's what Sri Nisargadatta says. We'll read it as soon as we get there in the book. But he says it again. He always does this. What's the difference between a realized soul and a deluded soul? He says, that a realized soul always leaves the body laughing. Right? That the realized soul always leaves the body laughing, but the deluded soul leaves the body weeping because he has lost everything. But the free soul laughs at the joke, the riddle that the body was, laughs at the promise of an infinity lost in an infinite love, swirling in an infinite and unconditioned grace, dancing outside of time and falling in love with the beloved evermore every day for an uncountable number of eons. Always an opportunity to go deeper into an infinite love. So live properly. Let this be your inspiration. If you will have a life with Christ or with your highest ideal, you must learn how to die to the world, right? You need to know that you are not the body. You need to know that you are not the mind. These temporary things, let them go, right? Die to the world. And if you are to go freely to Christ, then you must learn now to despise all things, all objects, because they are only thoughts in the mind that you live in. They do not have a reality. They are only a reflection of your nature. They are not the thing itself. So despise them in the sense of know that they can give you nothing without the thought of God behind them. Know that they are meaningless without your divine image giving them meaning. Right? Chastise your body now by penance. Learn to control it. Do things to it. I went for 3 days without a shower because I couldn't discipline myself to take a cold one out there in the desert. I have to admit it. I had my first shower last night after 3 days. I certainly thought about it. I sat there, I really did think about taking a cold water shower, but I mean, that well was 850 feet deep. That was cold water. that was cold water. Of course, my Indian brothers over in India, they didn't care at all. They never had hot water showers ever in their life. So for them, they couldn't even understand my suffering. And that just shows you that it's unreal. If they can take a perfectly cold shower and not even be affected by it, is it not purely my imagination that makes it such a sadhana for me to do it? Is that not just my imagination? So discipline the body. You don't have to take the cold shower, but that's a great way to do it. I know many monks who do that for that discipline. Get up on time, get up early. That's the reason in the monastery that monks get up so ridiculously early. It's not because they have to be somewhere or have to do something. It's for exactly that, for disciplining the body, making the body take its place, and understanding that you are not that. So chastise your body now by penance so that you can face death with sure confidence. Why? Because you know it's not you dying. That's why in the Christian scripture says that the wages of sin are death, right? What is sin? Sin is attachment to body mind. It's running after the objects of the world. That's the unhelpful thing. And so the wages of that is death. If you believe yourself to be the body, then you believe you're the one dying. And if you believe you're the one dying, you're the one that's going to be terrified. It's going to be a horror. It's going to be just terribly frightening. But know that you're not the body. Through your discipline, learn to understand it, not to pretend it. Go inside and see it. It is seeable. It is experienceable. It does not have to remain an imagination. Go in there and start watching what's going on. And that which is obvious will become apparent. My favorite phrase. That which is obvious will finally become apparent. You'll be like, oh my God, I'm not the body. What a crazy thing. And then you can watch it die. And that can be fascinating. As it's shutting down, as the soul is working itself loose and it starts shutting down, you'll be watching it with fascination. Like, look at this process. This is incredible. And you realize that the self is unchanged. You'll still be watching just as clearly as you're watching now. But you'll be watching something new and anticipating something amazing. And when that body drops and you find that there's still I, but you're free of it, my goodness, what kind of explosion of realization might happen to you at that moment, right? So you can face death with sure confidence that God will forgive you, that God is your grace. God is the reason that you're free, not because of the type of life you lived, but because God is what you are, right? And all of that will become clearer and clearer, especially when the body begins to drop. All right, what time are we at? Oh, we got some time. Number 7, you are a fool if you think you have a long life ahead when you're not even sure of living one more day, right? Which means really he's saying here, you're a fool for not thinking about it. You're a fool for not living your life accordingly, for being earnest about the things of wisdom, being earnest about the things of love. You're a fool for taking your practice lightly, for giving yourself permission to miss it. Oh my God, Lord in heaven, how can I say these words to myself? And how many times, right? How many times? We must arise and awake and stop not until the goal is reached. This is your opportunity. This moment is my opportunity. Today is your day. This moment is new. Leave your faults behind. Don't think about them even one more time, right? Leave your old habits behind. Do not think about them even one more time. Leave the old you behind. Don't even think about it one more time. Be free. Do in this moment, right now. Doesn't matter. Don't think about the future. Don't map these things out as something that have to last a lifetime. That makes them too big. Just each moment, be the person you always want to be. Each moment, do not forget, I'm not the body. I'm not the mind. Stay aware. That's what the summary of all of this is. Thinking of death, remembering death, all of that. That's not the thing. That's the packaging. That's the metaphor. But the real message of it is be aware. God surrounds you this moment. God surrounds you as the light that fills your room. That light is the love of the divine. Your presence, that you can hear anything, that you can see anything. That is God holding you in the palm of the hand of existence, saying, here, borrow this. Every breath that you take in is God blowing into Adam's nose and giving the life spirit, life, living. Every time you inhale, it's a deep, passionate kiss with the beloved, right? It's a deep, passionate kiss with the beloved. Be aware. This is what we're talking about. This is what he's saying. The metaphor is death, yes, because who dies? No one dies. How many are there? There's not many. There's one. So the reality of it is, fall in love right now. Fall in love with love. Fall in love with wisdom. And fall in love with being. And make every moment you're offering your little special piece of art to give to your divine love, to give to your mother, to give to your father, to give to your lover, your child, your brother, however you want to see it. Every moment created as that little flower ring of daisies that you made in the summer meadows for the one that you love. This is what the moment is. This is what the secret is. And this is all he's talking about. How many have been deceived with thinking they had a long life ahead when they have died without warning? How often have you heard that someone was murdered, another drowned, and still another fell and broke his neck? Okay, now he's just making us afraid. How this person choked to death and another person dropped dead while at a play, right? Some have burned to death, and some were killed by guns, others by disease, and still others at the hands of robbers. One thing is certain. Okay, so we should have just skipped to this sentence. One thing is certain. Death is the end of all. A person's life passes suddenly like a shadow, right? So death is at least the end of a chapter. You know, for his within the context of Christianity, it's the end of all. It's the only chance you get. So that's why he's really being emphatic about it. You know, and that may be, none of us really knows for sure. Even Ramakrishna, when he was asked, is there such a thing as reincarnation? He didn't say, oh yes, there absolutely is. He said, oh, some say it is so. Now what does that mean? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is now. This is what you've got. Live it fully. Who cares if it's the last one? Who cares if you get rounds of thousands more? This is the one you've got. Be free in it. Be loving in it. Dance in it. Be full of joy in it. Create something beautiful in it. And throw it out to the altar of the Lord. Right? How many people will remember you and pray for you once you are dead? So do all you can now, for you do not know when you will die or what you will face after death. Gain merit for eternity now, while there is time, and concern yourself only with your eternal salvation. That's what Vivekananda says. He says, there is one thing that follows you beyond the grave. Anybody know what that one thing is? Anybody at all? It's the $10,000 prize. Virtue. Virtue is the one thing that follows you beyond the grave. And what is that virtue? That virtue is anything that you did selflessly. All those little daisy rings you made for God, for the sake of love, those follow you beyond the grave. Not your mistakes, not your shortcomings, not your beliefs, not your practices, your virtue. Those pure moments that you've managed to touch in the years that spanned between the bodies living and dying. Attend to those things that are to God's honor and glory. That's exactly it. Just what we said. Attend to those things that make the moment you're offering. Attend to them with consciousness and with awareness. No matter what they are, they don't have to be daisy rings. You don't have to run out to the meadow. Your daisy ring could be putting your kids to bed. Your daisy ring could be making dinner for a friend. Your daisy ring could be sitting and thinking of the divine on the couch instead of turning on the television. It could be picking up a holy book. It could be going and sitting at the piano and singing an impromptu song to Mother. That's horrible, but it's sung with love. So it's the most beautiful thing in the world, because God hears devotion, not melody. Right? So this moment is what you make it beautiful and give it. Honor the saints and follow their example, and you will have friends waiting to receive you into everlasting dwellings when your life here is ended. Live on earth as a pilgrim and a stranger, unconcerned with the world's business. How's that for detachment? That's all he's saying. Live here as a passing stranger. I'm just a poor wayfaring stranger, a traveling through this world of woe. But there's no death, no earthly danger in that bright land to which I go. I'm going home to see you, mother. I'm going home, no more to roam. This is how we're living, just like that. And you can sing it like that. Make gold of every moment. Live on earth as a pilgrim. Let your heart remain free and lift it up to God, for you have not here a lasting city. Persevere in prayer. Make this life a prayer. Make this life one long, beautiful communion with that divine reality. Sending your aspirations daily up to God, so that at the hour of death, your soul may depart from this world and go to its beloved. Right? This is why we think of death every day and why it's helpful. And that's the teaching from the Imitation of Christ for tonight.